Today we're going to have a go at tracing. Now I know a lot of you might have some mixed feelings about tracing, and I can honestly say that it is not a replacement for drawing, and it never will be. Throughout the years and throughout the ages, artists have been using ways of shortening the process. It's down to you to practice your drawing and to make sure that you can draw, and if you can, or even if you're just beginning to learn, then using this method to get your image onto paper is not a bad thing. Equally, you can grid, that's the other option. Gridding is quite a nice option, very useful for scaling up images. So if you've got a small photograph but you want to make it fit onto a very large sheet of paper, then putting a grid over it and then replicating the grid on your large sheet of paper and just literally copying square by square by square is a really good way of doing it. But having said that, you're not going to learn very much about drawing. You'll learn about negative space, which is a good thing, but apart from that, you will not learn anything. Whereas if you trace, you're learning to gently replicate the curves and the grooves. You're seeing deeply how the eye works. You're looking at the very folds and the fabric of the face or whatever you're copying. So there's a huge benefit to tracing as well, which is why I advocate it always over gridding. So, how do you trace? To begin with, you need some tracing paper, obviously, a photograph, some description, and paper that you're going to put it on, and some masking tape. Let's begin with the beginning and have a look at the photograph. So I'm going to have a go at doing Robin Gibb, and in fact later on I'll paint this in watercolour too, so you'll have the benefit of the whole process from beginning to end. Now, as I say, I could sit down and draw it by hand, but that would take me probably, to get it a completely accurate drawing, about an hour, whereas this is going to take me 5 minutes. So it's really important that your photograph is of high quality. And we have here two examples, and you can see the huge difference. So this is on photo paper and this is on ordinary printer paper, and it's a world of difference between the two. You can see this is very grey, a lot of the details are lost. This is clear. In an ideal world, if you've got a computer, what you want to do now is get the image reversed. There it is, so the same image, but it's just a mirror image. And that's reversed, and that will cut out half the time of tracing. So this is a great way of doing it. Now I'm going to get rid of my original image. I'm going to use this one, and I'll explain how you go about doing it if you haven't got the luxury of reversing the image. So now we have a look at the tracing paper. So you can see the tracing paper, if I put it like that, isn't too bad. You can see quite clearly through it. There are some losses, so it becomes quite difficult to see through there, but actually this is reasonable quality from Staples. Just be aware that you might buy some paper that's awful. Okay, so the first thing you want to do, get rid of the paper you're going to put it on, and just fix your image to something. Doesn't matter what, but it's not going to move around. So a little bit of tape, just to make sure it's going to stay where it's meant to stay. Now you want to put this on top. Make sure it covers the whole image. Now this time I'm only going to put some tape at the top because I want to just be able to look underneath. So when I get to some areas which I'm a little confused on or I'm not sure about, I can just check and say, oh yeah, the line does do that. Now the pencil I'm using is a 0.7. That's the width of the lead or the graphite, and the softness is 2B. I find that's absolutely about perfect. You could use a 3B, but anything harder than that you won't be able to trace with. So don't use an HB pencil and expect to get great results. Likewise a B, it just won't be good enough. But a 2B is good, 3B is okay. Once you go into the softer leads, they can start creating very large thick lines, which you don't want. And also, when you then put them onto your watercolour paper, there's an awful lot of graphite. So the graphite can get muddled up with the paint and it can get quite dirty and muddy. So a 2B is perfect. Now the next thing you want to do when you're just about to trace is put your glasses on. If you need glasses, then wear them. This is not one of those things where you just roughly go duh, 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 da, 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 da. That is not tracing. It's not going to give you the results that you want. You have to look at this really, really carefully. So I'll start with the nose. I'll just gently go around the side of the nose. There's a nostril here, dark. I'm going to just hint at the shape. And then I'll fill it in roughly. There's a bit of a shadow here, and then there is reflected light underneath. I'll put that in. I'm going to do a little circle around this highlight so I know where that's going to be later on. And now I'm going to do a broken line. So when lines are a bit fuzzy, rather than doing a straight line like that, I'll do that, which indicates that there is a definition, but it's a bit softer. So on this line here, up the nose, it is a line, but it's not a crude one or a hard one. So I'm just going to do a gentle broken line to indicate where it is. Same thing on the shadows. I'm going to do some what you call single hatching. So rather than cross hatching, it's single hatching, just to indicate the tone. I don't want to fill it all in with lead, obviously, or sorry, graphite. Now the eyeball itself, this is crucial. This is one of the most difficult bits that you're ever going to do, and you have to be 100% accurate, really, really tight on it. And then on the highlight, I'm going to indicate here. Now there's a line here. Most people, beginners, would just do a big fat line across there. Well, it's not. It's a two-line job. And it's his eyelashes going across like that. And then down here. The fold of his eyelid is quite thin, so that's fine. I'm now going to indicate some shadows here. I'm just going to put a little line around that highlight. I'm going to put a little line around this highlight, a little line around that one. At this point I can see the hair and his eyebrow is getting into a bit of a muddle. So I'm just going to have a little look underneath to see if I can clarify. Ah, yes, in fact I can. Now I look at it, I can see that the curl of his hair is coming around into his eyebrow. That makes it hard to define where his eyebrow actually is, and probably what I will do when I come to paint it, I'll look up some pictures of Robin Gibb and just double check the shape of his eyebrows, and I'll draw them in and possibly remove some of this hair. I'm not going to fill all of that in with black, I'm just doing the outline of it. That's fuzzy, so there. And then here you can see the chin goes from light to dark with a fuzziness, but there is a sort of a line there. If I just did a hard line, that wouldn't be telling me anything. But by doing the broken line, which covers the gradation from light to dark, tells me where I'm going to go. Never try and simplify what you see, and never ever draw what you cannot see. If you don't know what it is, then don't draw it. Just draw what you see. So that is all the information that I can take out of that. So you can see it's a lot of detail. Now what I'm going to do is just take it off. I'll just flip this now so you can see. I'll just bring it up. You can see the amount of detail that I put in. You can see the broken lines. So that's it. And as you can see, there's a lot of lost stuff here that I'm going to have to try and think about quite heavily. Now what I will do at this stage is just go over some of the lines that have got a little bit too fine, where I've tried to be delicate, which is good, but delicate is not good when you're trying to trace. Okay. Now, if you haven't managed to reverse it, at this stage, while it's still one way up, you haven't done anything to it, it's just right at the top, front. So you know that that's the right way up. Now, you reverse it, and you then redraw over everything. Okay, very, very carefully, just drawing all your lines. And I would suggest you start at the top left and work across. And then where you're not sure, just hold it to the light and you'll be able to see the graphite shines a little bit, so you can see if you've missed out anything. It's nothing worse than getting the tracing on the paper and then realise you've missed out an entire eye. Of course you can put it back in again, but it's a pain. So that's what you do. So you do all of that. But, as I say, I haven't done that. All I've done is the one image which is reversed. So this is the side that I drew on. You can see my pencil marks. Now all I've got to do is turn it over. And now you can see it is exactly the same way as my original picture. So now I'm going to put it in the middle of my paper that I'm going to be using to paint my picture on. And I'm just going to now fix it. This is quite important. You don't want it moving around. Now I use the back of my pen here, which is hard and rounded. That's quite a good surface to use. You could use the back of anything. You could use the back of a pencil. A lot of people then start laboriously drawing again, so you've actually drawn, if you haven't reversed it, 3 times, which is a killer. So the first thing is just to make sure it's going to work. So we'll just take this line here, a quick rub. I'll do this one too. This is just to check how hard you need to rub it. You'll see that the line underneath becomes notably darker anyway. But now I'm just going to peel off this just to make sure that it's working. And you can see that it is coming out quite nicely. You don't want a really heavy image, it should be quite light. So now, you just go over the whole thing really quickly. Do a bit at a time, so do the mouth and go across. So don't just do in one direction like that, all of it. Do it in several directions. That way you'll get the graphite to sit in the various pockets of the paper. And I'm working on rough paper, so you really do need to make sure you do that. Just take off, hold it so it's not going to move too much. This is already attached here. Just take off 2 sides so we can lift up the entire paper and just have a little look and check. Is everything there? And everything is there. It's all good. Okay, remove the tracing. Don't throw it away. It's always useful. Once you've started painting and you look at things, you think, do you know that eye just doesn't work? It's useful just to pop the tracing back on it and just look and think, oh my goodness me, because over a period of time when you're painting, things can start moving around, obviously because you obliterate your original pencil line. So it's always worth just having that to hand, just to put back if you're worried and you think you've lost yourself somewhere. So that's it. So now here's the tracing on the paper. You can see it's quite fragile, not a heavy image at all. So now, because it is so fragile, you don't want to sort of now just start drawing or painting and rubbing it with the back of your hand, because it will just be gone. So now we get the original picture and we now start looking at what we've got and drawing it in more accurately and tidying up and no longer second guessing. So just let's start with that eyebrow. So I am just going to darken it in, put that curl of his hair in there. You now want to put the pupil back in the middle of the eyeball. Remember, the pupil will be in the middle of the eyeball, regardless of where. Let me just get a little bit of paper to demonstrate. So the eye looks like this, and you've got the iris. So the whole of the iris is like that, and you've got these lower lashes and then a lid of some description. The eyeball is a big round ball, of course, and in the middle of it is this wonderful circle like that of the iris, and in the middle of that is the circle of the pupil. The pupil is always in the circle. It's never out of it. So what you will never ever see is the circle of the iris and the pupil. I should just darken it in just to make it clear, to that side. Unless it's a cartoon. You might get it in a Tom and Jerry cartoon, but it will never be like that in this. So now, when you're looking at this, you have to, in your head, imagine the rest, or you could draw lightly in the rest of the circle, just to give you a better idea of the centre of it, and then that way you can quite happily put your pupil back in the middle of the eye, and then you can fill it in. So now it's correct. There you go. So that's it. All done. Ready to paint. There it is. I'll just go right close in so you can see what I've done. And so the next lesson is going to be painting Robin Gibb. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.